Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Rudy. Avant-garde jazz and just avant-garde in general, composition with room for improvisation. I've been looking forward to this one since it came in, particularly because I've thought I was familiar with one of the artists. This is a collaboration between Sylvie Courvoisier and Mary Halvorson. And I thought I had heard of Mary Halvorson, but doesn't appear to be anywhere on my channel. And as far as I checked my listen to albums, her name hasn't popped up there either. So, not really sure why I know that name. Sylvie plays the piano here. Mary is going to play the guitar. Let's dive into this. See what's going on with the track Bone Bells. Heavy dissonance to kick it off. Ooh, the piano picking up the guitar line, so the guitar can do the lead here. The timing on that run. Is that the highest note to the lowest? That was... That didn't sound like a bend. That sounded like a tuning knob rotation. Pulled it back in tune though. Okay, very interesting sounds here. The octave. I knew it. I knew it. So much rising tension in those final moments. I knew there wasn't going to be resolution because there's been very little in the song at all. It would be like watching a sad film and then everything works out in the end. Like, that's just not how it works. When you have something with this much tension to it, yeah, you can certainly resolve it strongly at the end, but that's going to feel kind of cheap. I think the icing on the cake, though, isn't just the lack of resolution to that final rising chord progression, but it was the abrupt stop. We don't even really end the song in a traditional way either. We just play notes or play chords and then just, you don't play the next chord. The melody line on the keyboard kind of stopped. It was also a bit of an awkward place to end, but the phrasing all across this song has been a little unusual as well too. So again, to think that this song was going to end in any sort of traditional manner, well, that's just foolish. Doesn't make it hurt any less though. I do like my resolution. Even if we only get like a half resolution, something that kind of gives the song an essence of finality to it, even if the rising chords had come back down or something to point towards a wrapping up rather than just a point where the song stops being, where the musicians cease to play anymore. It certainly makes an interesting ending, but like I said, that doesn't mean I have to like it. And I don't. Um, but I suppose that's just sort of going to be my subjective take on the entirety of this song. It's not for me. There are bits and pieces to this I quite enjoyed. I like some of the subversive elements to it, but on the whole, it doesn't quite work for me on a first time listen. Here's the big thing that stands out to me though. Usually when it comes to songs like this that they just bounce off of me. I'm like, this it's not my cup of tea. This is different. With those songs, I'm like, I'm glad I've heard it. Have an artistic appreciation for what the artists are doing. I will probably never listen to this song again. That's not what's happening here though. I don't know what it is about this. And maybe after I'm done talking about it, maybe I will come to some sort of conclusion. But as of right now, something draws me into it, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it is just those little bits of slightly more traditional melodic writing or melodic phrasing that makes sense to me. Those little bits that call my name. I want to listen to this again. The thing with music that doesn't work for us is usually an exposure element. There's a part of the music that we are not accustomed to yet, which makes it difficult to listen to, and that makes us not want to listen to it. This is different than enjoyable music that's difficult to listen to, whether maybe it's just very complex in a way that demands your attention, or maybe it's emotionally powerful. That's a different type of I enjoy this, but I don't always want to listen to it. This is different than that. This is music that I don't get. It's difficult to listen to because I don't get it. And the only way to really get through that is exposure. I still stand behind the notion that all music is an acquired taste, even down to your mainstream bubblegum pop, evidenced by the fact that most metalheads say they don't like pop. I really think it's just that they don't get it. The thing about pop is that it has a very low barrier to entry, and it's very fun to listen to. Now, maybe if you don't like fun, you'll never like pop. And there's certainly genres out there that I think for a specific person, they will just never enjoy. No matter how much they're exposed to it, it is just not the kind of music they like. For me, that's black metal. Hint, hint. I'm kidding. But, even coming into this channel, we kicked it off with music that I found rather palatable. We stuck to the more mainstream side of rock. We had pop. The first song on this channel, I reacted to a pop song. So I was definitely in a much lighter bubble than how all of you sort of directed me, bringing this into more of a metal and other oddities, which is how we get stuff like this on the channel. I feel like I've attracted people who enjoy odd, abstract music here, which is pretty cool, honestly. But y'all have introduced me to a lot of music that I did not enjoy. Metal, even, for the most part, was not something I found enjoyable. Through exposure, I've come to appreciate what it does, and for some metal, I've come to like what it's doing. It really depends on what it is, though I still would not consider myself a metalhead. But I've put some stuff on my album of the year list that I would never have before. Even if I had found it the same year, if I hadn't been exposed to all this other stuff, it would never have clicked with me. Exposure helped me understand its language, and through that, I gained a stronger appreciation for what it's doing. And through that appreciation, I found enjoyment. I really think that's the general path you have to take for all types of music. I don't think any of us are just born with an inclination towards extreme metal. You might find it a little easier than someone else to get into, but I think a lot of that comes down to the path you take. If you're introduced to pop first, yeah, metal's going to be a little abrasive. If you're introduced to metal at age 4, that's going to be easier to get into as you get older. So I'm way off topic though. Let me bring it back to Sylvie and Mary here. Avant-garde music is, by definition, sort of breaking the rules of music. As I've said in the past, music theory is more of a collection of observations rather than hard rules about how to make music. It states more that all of these great works of music have done this, so this is probably a good way to achieve this sound if you want to do that on your own. And we've used this to create a series of ideas and definitions for all sorts of terms and techniques and concepts for building music. We call it music theory, but I still think theory is sort of the wrong word there. It's a collection of observation. Makes it sound more scientific than it is. Avant-garde music in general, experimental music in general, is about chucking that book out the window and trying something new. That's what we get here. It breaks the, as I put in quotations, rules of music. That means it has its own language. Unlike when I was getting into metal, I had still a framework. A lot of metal still based around 3/4, 4/4, 6/8. It has melody, has rhythm, a lot of straightforward ideas to it. the general sound of it, the production of it was something to learn to enjoy, but I understood the language. It was just a different dialect. This is a different language entirely. That's what makes it difficult to get into. And that's why I think it takes even more exposure. And it's not something that you can just say, oh, I'm going to listen to experimental music. They don't really overlap. If you go listen to a bunch of metal bands, you're going to find some overlapping ideas, and just listening to metal in general will help you enjoy it. When it comes to experimental music like this, every band is building its own, or every artist is building its own language. There's not a lot of carryover between them other than an open-mindedness. And I know this is very long-winded. We're sitting on like 10 minutes almost here of me talking about music in sort of an abstract sense. But I think it's really important to come to this conclusion here that this song makes me want to listen to more from Mary and Sylvie. I think that there's something here that I could grasp. I think with more exposure, I could get this in a way that not all experimental music does. This isn't the first time this has happened, sure, but I do feel like this is the first time in a while. Something about it needs to grab me. And like I mentioned, I don't know what it is that grabbed me here, but I am curious about it. I want to listen to this song a couple more times. Getting to the music, though, it's a smorgasbord of concepts. The key idea here is accompaniment and solo. We started off with the guitar playing an accompanying line underneath. It isn't static, it isn't just chords, there is some movement to it, but it is obviously secondary to the piano, which is playing the lead. This only happens for 8 bars, maybe. It was actually a really quick trade-off. I thought that was interesting. Before the piano chord, whatever note or chord the guitar, whatever note or chord it ended on, the piano picked up immediately, and just that timbre shift immediately clicked with me, and that's when I realized, oh, they're swapping. So that's pretty cool. And this pretty much makes up the entirety of the song. Somebody plays an accompanying part, some sort of foundational idea, not static, not just chords, but secondary to the spotlight. And the other one takes the spotlight and solos. Now, Rudy said that this is improvisational, so I'm going to go in that direction and assume that most of this is improvised. What I find interesting is the more that I listen to it, the more that I realize it's probably also the foundational part that's improvised as well. I think the only thing that might be pre-composed would be the length of sections, maybe some general ideas to help signpost specific moments, particularly handing off, switching roles. But I wouldn't be surprised to find that most of this is improvised on the spot. And that's simply because the underlying parts also feel adventurous. They also feel fresh, maybe. It's tough to kind of come to this conclusion. There have certainly been many times in the past when I've got this wrong. My gut says, yeah, that's probably improvised. And y'all will hit me up in the comments. Nah, dude, they play that song identically live. It's really hard to make the call if something is improvised or not, because it's not something you can really gauge. But having spent a lot of time in jazz groups, big bands particularly, and listening to soloists, listening to the greats in jazz play their solos, going and seeing live jazz music. And I know, my core here is just jazz. I don't really go listen to a lot of jam bands, like improvised rock stuff. I don't listen to a lot of avant-garde stuff. So that might be why some of this isn't as, I can't extrapolate it as well into these other realms. Very different types of music. Like I said earlier, different kinds of language. But there's something that clicks with me when I hear specific lines, phrases, how ideas move and grow. Yeah, It's probably improvised. I don't have any scientific reason behind it. It's just a gut feeling usually, and that's what's happening here. I could be wrong. It's a gut feeling though. And I like that though. Whether it is improvised or not, it's not just chords and melody, which is what a lot of accompanying lines are. There's movement. Now, the movement on both of these instruments in both roles is interesting. I wouldn't say it's chaotic, but it's definitely difficult to anticipate. At least anticipate perfectly accurate. If you give me a pop punk track or an emo track or even like a 90s heavy metal song, I can typically anticipate where things are going. Not to say that they're cookie cutter, but that the genres have their tropes. There's no tropes to follow on this. There are general ideas that I can kind of, they're rising up. We are in 4/4, so at the end of this 4-bar phrase, we're probably going to have something that interrupts it, maybe a change of idea, maybe we're going to swap. I can generally see the signposts, I just can't read them. I don't know what's going to happen there as much as I can feel that's probably a point where something does happen. Rising ideas don't always turn into descending ideas. Sometimes they don't even continue to rise. In the middle of what feels like a phrase to me, it might just stop and stand on a single note with a repeated rhythm. The pianist, Sylvie, absolutely loves to play with rhythm. It's one of the most interesting things about her style, especially in contrast to Mary's, is how often she will play around, not specifically with upbeats, but the spaces between the up and the downbeat. Not just working with eighth notes, but 16th notes and possibly even portions of tuplets. It's kind of wild because to me, it feels random. It does feel chaotic. There is a reason, a rhyme to all of it. Just on a first time listen, it doesn't follow any of my expectations. I'll say that harmonically, though, I find Sylvie more easier to follow, though she loves to play around with tense chord, tense note intervals. Specifically, I hear a lot of half step intervals in here, sometimes even across octaves, which creates a really neat type of dissonance that I quite enjoy. Um, because it's not quite the super tension of having two notes really close in wavelength. It's still tension because these notes don't want to be together, but the wavelengths are different. They're an octave apart. And that puts a lot more space between them that feels more palatable in ways at times. There's also half step right next to each other, though. That's geez, sends shivers down my spine. I just don't like dissonance like that. But it's used as a nice flavor in here, even if it's moments that kind of make me scrunch my face. It's a nice antithesis almost to the more consonant melodic writing that we do hear from Sylvie as well. And I think it's cool to kind of see the song ebb and flow. I feel like the beginning of the track focuses more on dissonant harmonies. And as we get to the middle, things kind of consonant up a little bit. And on our way out, we head back towards dissonant sounds, though not as dissonant as we kick the song off with. There's a nice bit of movement and exploration throughout all of that. And it's probably why the song clicked with me a little more in the middle towards the end, too, simply because it was beginning to hit some of my musical sensibilities a bit more, while still not losing its identity as, an avant-garde track, kind of doing its own thing, exploring its own sounds. Mary, on the other hand, though, I enjoy a lot of what's going on in the guitar work here. There is less of a playfulness of harmony into dissonant sounds. Yes, there's a lot of things going on in here that are not purely consonant, but it also seems to make a little more sense to me. I don't know what it is about it. The chord progressions feel more natural while still being different, while still being unique. It's, I suppose a way to say it is that it doesn't feel as esoteric as some of Sylvie's ideas, and I find that to be a really nice balance. that Mary brings to this specific song. I'm not saying that these two people's styles are that this song is highly representative of them. I've never heard of any of their other works. But at least in this song, it's almost as if Mary is being a little bit more of the counter, the foil to Sylvie's more intense, dissonant tones. And I find that to be a really nice balance to the song. That as wild as some of the piano parts can get, the guitar will balance that out and will level things out a little bit more. In that way, I found Mary's to be more immediately palatable on the surface. I think Sylvie's is her solo playing is what I would end up wanting to dive more into on the subsequent listens to kind of get a better understanding of. But again, that's not to say that one's better than the other or that one is more complex or anything like that. It just it resonates with me a little more, and I get it. There's also, I love this from both of the musicians, a phenomenal playfulness to it, which feels like a strange word for a song as serious and tense and abstract as this. This is a good word. It put a smile on my face at least 3 times, and that's because of what they did, how they led up to a point, and then what they chose to do at that point. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a musical punchline, because that I think requires an understanding of deeper ideas of the musical language, which I don't have a grasp over. But it did take the song in directions where I thought we were going one way and we did something else instead, a little turn of phrase or maybe a pun or something along those lines. It's just a little different than what I expected in a way that feels lighthearted. It's really easy for me to fall into the idea that a song like this is antagonistic because that is my experience with it. I hear a lot of these tones and I hear tension, I feel tightening, I feel anxiety. I think in the past I have fallen into this trap that my experience with a song, that I extrapolate that onto what the song is doing. And I think generally when we talk about songs that follow into the traditional ideas of music theory, that's a safe bet. If a song sounds sad to me, it probably sounds sad in general. But when it comes to more experimental things like this, where the tonality is more exploratory, this is like abstract painting, where what you get out of it is what you put into it. And it's not so much as what the art is saying, but what it is saying to you specifically. And I may have conflated that in past more experimental or avant-garde songs by saying that this is what the song is doing. And so I want to correct that here. What I get out of songs like this is usually tension and anxiety and claustrophobia and just like a tightening in of the walls. I don't think that's what it's doing, though. It keeps things light. Sonically, sure, the two instruments are rather quiet. There's a lot of dynamic work on this track, so it ends up feeling kind of small and, again, quiet at times. It can certainly get loud when it wants to, but it doesn't feel like it always needs to fill up space. Between that, some timid moments, and the rarer fun section that puts a smile on my face, it doesn't feel as antagonistic as harmonically it sounds like to me. Part of this might also just be the rhythmic playing too. While there are some really fun ideas on this from both musicians, it doesn't really come off as noisy. There's a lot of warble in the tone thanks to the dissonance, but that's about all of the movement to it, where I find a clashing type of rhythmic movement or spatial movement. The two instruments are well aware of each other, their place, and how to dance around them. It is an intricate, interpretive dance, sure, but at no time do I feel like the two dancers are stepping on each other's toes. There's a strong consideration and understanding of the other, and if it is all improvised, it's not just an understanding of their part, but an understanding of the person, where they might go next in this dance, and you making sure you stay just out of the way so that it doesn't look like two people on opposite ends of the stage, but you're also not tripping over each other either. And I think that's really interesting too. It makes me wonder how often or how, yeah, how often they play with each other. Not even just for composition like this, but even just jam sessions, non recorded, just jamming it out. They seem to understand each other's style very well, is what I'm getting at. And it's a blast to listen to the two of them sort of have a conversation here. I usually like to end these videos with some sort of larger idea, some way that the song speaks to me, some sort of theme that I hear moving through it. Like I said, I don't understand this language enough yet, but I'm enthralled by it. I don't know what they're trying to say. I don't know what the song means. To me, it's a jam session. I see two people chilling, having a good time, playing some interesting music with each other, but I don't grasp it yet. I was told also not to look into the title too heavily, especially with instrumental music. I have a way of falling down that rabbit hole at times, but I was informed that the song title was just taken because the words sound cool and they were the title of a novel or a phrase in a novel, something like that. Has nothing to do really with the music at all. Just a fun phrase to say to give it a name. I definitely would have tried to figure out what this song means according to Bone Bells. Sometimes y'all in the community know me very well, and I don't know if that's cool or if that frightens me. um, but I do want to thank Rudy for bringing this to my attention. Like I mentioned, I thought I had heard of Mary Halvorson before. Guitar though, it kind of rang a bell too when I read that she played the guitar. She's got to be part of some band then. Maybe not as like an artist, but if I knew what band she played for, maybe I could see that and see if we've reacted to that one or if I've listened to it in my own time or something. Anyways, that's going to wrap this one up. I know you guys usually come here for deep analysis. I don't really think I gave that today, but I hope that maybe even if you didn't enjoy this very much, I gave you a level of appreciation for what is happening and why it's cool and why I'm enthralled by it, which I still don't have a strong understanding of why this one works for me a little more than other experimental songs that I've heard. But I am glad that I've clicked with it on some level because it's really tough for me to make that connection. Like I mentioned, I know exposure is what you need to get into this. I find it really difficult to find music that I want to expose myself to, that I want to dive into, knowing that it's not my cup of tea. So, these are my thoughts. Sylvie and Mary, Bone Bells, what do you think? Did anything stand out to you? Would you like to add on to anything that I said? Maybe correct me on if I misspoke about something. Put all of that and any other perspectives, opinions, or thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. In here, you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.